The Dalai Lama holds immense global spiritual importance. He is the foremost spiritual leader for Tibetan Buddhists. Many around the world view him as a potent symbol of peace. He also represents the enduring cultural identity of the Tibetan people. The current Dalai Lama, Tenzin Gyatso, is the 14th in this revered line. His influence extends far beyond purely religious circles. He was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize in 1989 for his non-violent struggle. His widely respected teachings emphasize compassion and universal responsibility. The question of his succession is now an increasingly urgent matter. Reincarnation, or is a central tenet of Tibetan Buddhism. The Dalai Lamas are believed to be rebirths of Avalokitesvara. Avalokitesvara is the bodhisattva of compassion, a key figure. Traditionally, a meticulous search is conducted to find the child reincarnation. This sacred search involves spiritual signs, prophecies, and rigorous tests. The current Dalai Lama is now in his late 80s, born in 1935. This advanced age makes the issue of his next incarnation a pressing global concern. The Dalai Lama himself has spoken clearly and directly on his reincarnation. He issued a significant and detailed statement on this matter in September 2011. In it, he asserted that he alone holds the legitimate authority to decide his future rebirth. This prerogative includes whether or not he will choose to reincarnate at all. Crucially, he has also stated his successor will not be born under Chinese control. Furthermore, he has mentioned the possibility of appointing a successor during his lifetime. This would be a departure from tradition, adapting to modern challenges. He has even contemplated being the last Dalai Lama if circumstances deem it necessary. The Dalai Lama's role historically combined both spiritual and political leadership. For many centuries, the Dalai Lamas were the temporal rulers of Tibet. They governed the vast Tibetan region from the Potala Palace in Lhasa. Following the Chinese invasion in 1950 and uprising in 1959, the 14th Dalai Lama sought exile. He has since lived in Dharamshala, India, leading the Tibetan diaspora. He formally relinquished his direct political role within the Central Tibetan administration in 2011. However, he undeniably remains a powerful political symbol for Tibetans worldwide. His spiritual guidance continues to inspire millions across the globe, irrespective of faith. China has made its intentions regarding the Dalai Lama's succession unequivocally clear. Beijing is absolutely determined to control the entire reincarnation process. The Chinese Communist Party, CCP, staunchly insists on its ultimate approval. They officially state the successor must be found within the borders of China. This position directly contradicts the Dalai Lama's own pronouncements and religious authority. China's long-standing policy is to manage all religious affairs within its territory. This control extends to the selection of high-ranking religious figures. Their overarching goal is to assert complete state power over sacred religious tradition. A disturbing historical precedent clearly shows China's likely approach to this issue. This is the deeply troubling case of the Panchen Lama, another High Tibetan Lama. In May 1995, the Dalai Lama recognized a young boy, Gedun Choeki Nyima. He was formally identified as the authentic 11th Panchen Lama. Shortly after this recognition, Chinese authorities detained the 6-year-old boy and his family. China then swiftly installed its own preferred candidate, Gyaltsen Norbu. Gedun Choeki Nyima, the Dalai Lama's choice, has not been seen in public since that time. This blatant action serves as a stark and ominous warning for the Dalai Lama's succession. Controlling the reincarnation is an integral part of a much broader strategy. China officially calls this comprehensive strategy the Sinicization of Tibet. This policy aims to reshape Tibetan culture to conform to CCP ideology. It involves intensive surveillance and policing of monasteries and practicing monks and nuns. So-called patriotic re-education campaigns are widespread and reportedly harsh. These campaigns, according to reports, involve indoctrination and sometimes abuse. Numerous religious structures have been demolished, restricted, or significantly altered. The ultimate objective is to dilute and eventually erase Tibet's unique religious identity. Beijing's motivations for this control are multifaceted and deeply strategic. Control over Tibet is consistently framed as a core national interest by the CCP. This is comparable to its unyielding stance on regions like Xinjiang and Taiwan. Securing the Dalai Lama's succession is seen as vital to bolstering their authority in Tibet. It also aims to extend China's influence over the global Buddhist community. Tibet's geography, the high-altitude plateau, is also strategically vital to China's interests. The Tibetan Plateau provides crucial water resources and key military positioning. China deeply fears the Dalai Lama's enduring influence undermines its absolute rule in Tibet. The Tibetan administration in exile, based in India, remains steadfast and resolute. The Central Tibetan Administration, CTA, firmly opposes China's planned interference. Dr. Lobsang Sangay, a former Sikyong or political leader, has been particularly outspoken. He has clearly stated that China will have absolutely no role in finding the next Dalai Lama. This categorical exclusion includes the search, recognition, or subsequent training process. He effectively cited historical precedents to support this unwavering stance. For example, the fourth Dalai Lama, Yonten Gyatso, was born in Mongolia. The sixth Dalai Lama, Tsangyang Gyatso, was born in Tawang, a region now part of India. International concern regarding this issue is steadily growing, particularly from the United States. A bipartisan US congressional delegation recently visited the Dalai Lama in Dharamshala. This high-profile delegation included former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi. The influential House Foreign Affairs Committee Chairman Michael McCaul was also present. They collectively reaffirmed strong and continued US support for Tibetan self-determination. Chairman McCaul specifically highlighted China's blatant attempts to interfere in the succession. Ms. Pelosi made characteristically strong statements critical of China's President Xi Jinping. Such official visits signal significant diplomatic backing for the Tibetan cause and its leader. The United States has enacted specific legislative measures to address this situation. The Tibetan Policy and Support Act of 2020 is one such important measure. It explicitly aims to counter Chinese state-sponsored manipulation of the reincarnation process. There are increasing and urgent calls for democratic nations to unite on this critical issue. These nations are strongly urged to protect the integrity of the Tibetan-led religious process. China reacted with predictable anger to the US congressional delegation's recent visit. Beijing threatened to take resolute measures to defend its sovereignty claims over Tibet. This sharp exchange underscores the considerable diplomatic tension surrounding Tibet's future. India plays a particularly crucial, albeit complex and delicate role in this unfolding situation. India has been home to the Dalai Lama and the Tibetan exile community since 1959. It is often described by Tibetans as the closest ally of the Tibetan people. Historically, Tibet served as an important buffer state between India and China. China's military occupation of Tibet in 1950 fundamentally changed this geopolitical dynamic. It consequently created long-standing and often tense border disputes and security concerns for India. The CTA has repeatedly urged the Indian Parliament to voice support for their stance. This support would significantly reinforce the legitimacy of the traditional process of reincarnation. The stakes involved in this impending succession crisis are extraordinarily high for all parties. A major and widely shared fear is the potential emergence of two rival Dalai Lamas. One would inevitably be chosen and controlled by the Chinese government in Beijing. The other would be identified according to the ancient Tibetan Buddhist tradition by Tibetan Lamas. This highly problematic scenario would create deep and damaging divisions among Tibetans globally. It would also undoubtedly confuse millions of Buddhists around the world. The very legitimacy of this pivotal spiritual leadership role would be fiercely contested. This could profoundly and negatively impact Tibetan unity and cherished religious practices. The geopolitical implications of this struggle extend far beyond Tibet's mountainous borders. China's direct interference has a demonstrable chilling effect on regional stability and religious freedom. Many Buddhist-majority countries throughout Asia are watching these developments very closely. Nations such as Mongolia, with its own Tibetan Buddhist traditions, face similar pressures from China. Beijing is known to use its considerable economic leverage to influence their internal religious affairs. This includes exerting pressure on the selection processes for their own spiritual leaders' reincarnations. China's actions are widely interpreted as an attempt to assert dominance over Buddhism across Asia. This ambition understandably creates significant unease among its neighbors and internationally. China is actively and aggressively managing its international image concerning this sensitive issue. It is currently conducting a sophisticated and well-funded public relations strategy. This extensive strategy specifically targets Western governments, influential academics, and global media outlets. The primary aim is to systematically diminish international support for Tibet and the Dalai Lama. They consistently portray the Dalai Lama as a splittist or separatist figure. Recent detailed reports, such as one from the International Tibet Network, meticulously document these efforts. The report, Tibet, the Dalai Lama, and the Geopolitics of Reincarnation, details China's intensified campaign. This ongoing information war is a key component of their broader geopolitical game plan. Despite decades of stringent Chinese rule and indoctrination, Tibetan loyalty remains remarkably strong. The deep reverence for the Dalai Lama among Tibetans, both inside Tibet and in exile, is profound. This unwavering spiritual allegiance endures despite extensive patriotic education campaigns by the state. Beijing's concerted efforts to win the hearts and minds of Tibetans have largely proven unsuccessful. This persistent loyalty highlights a perceived critical lack of legitimacy for Chinese rule in Tibet. The future of Tibetan Buddhism is therefore at a particularly critical and uncertain juncture. Its leadership and continuity are now deeply entangled with complex global power dynamics. The entire world watches intently as this unique spiritual and political drama continues to unfold.